Here is something the used motorcycle market will not tell you. Some 2000s bikes are the smartest purchase you will ever make, and others are a bankruptcy waiting to happen, and most riders cannot tell the difference between the two. Today, we fix that. 7 bikes from this decade that genuinely deserve to fail, named and explained in detail. Then 9 that quietly outperform anything new on a showroom floor today. Stick around, because the order here matters more than you think. And the very last bike on this list might be the smartest purchase you make all year. Starting with those 2000s motorcycles you shouldn't even look at twice. Crashing out, early at number 7, Cannondale MX400. Cannondale Motorsports thought they could waltz into the motorcycle industry as a total outsider and reinvent the wheel with a reverse cylinder engine layout, putting the exhaust port at the front of the engine and the intake at the back. It sounds clever on paper, almost like the kind of bold engineering swing that wins design awards at a trade show. In practice, across the 2 model years of 2000 and 2001, it produced chronic fuel injection mapping failures that left the bike stumbling exactly when you needed power, along with crankcases that were known to split wide open under completely normal riding conditions. Cannondale had built its name on bicycles, and it turned out that confidence with aluminum frames did not translate cleanly into confidence with combustion. These currently sit at $1,500 to $2,500, and honestly, most surviving examples are not even running anymore. They exist as garage ornaments with suspiciously low hours, and that low mileage is not a badge of honor. It is a warning sign because those hours simply never happened before the bike gave up on life. Before you even think about handing over cash, check whether the engine cases were split to update the main bearings to the post-bankruptcy specification that Cannondale quietly issued before the entire motorsports division folded for good. If that specific work was never done on the bike in front of you, you are not buying a motorcycle. You are buying a science experiment that has already failed once, and there is absolutely nothing stopping it from failing again the very first time you twist that throttle, in anger, possibly leaving you stranded somewhere with no dealer network left standing to call. And trust us, the next entry on this list fails in a way that is somehow even stranger. Tipping over badly at number 6, BMW C1. BMW tried something genuinely weird between 2000 and 2002, and depending on who you ask, it was either years ahead of its time or a solution to a problem nobody actually had. A roofed commuter scooter with a full structural safety cage, no helmet legally required in some European markets thanks to that cage, and a fundamentally top-heavy design that made anything slower than parking lot speed feel genuinely precarious underneath you. It was engineered with genuine seriousness, crash-tested and everything. But seriousness does not always translate into something people actually want to ride to work. They currently go for $2,500 to $4,000, with 5,000 to 15,000 miles on the odometer. Assuming you can even track one down outside of Europe, because import numbers into the United States were painfully thin to begin with, and most examples never crossed the Atlantic at all. The dual stand mechanism on these is fragile in a way that should genuinely worry you, and BMW discontinued replacement cables and linkage handles for it years ago, leaving owners to hunt through obscure European forums for salvaged parts pulled off donor bikes that are themselves getting harder to find every single year. Inspect that entire system closely before a single dollar changes hands, because if it fails on you, you are left with a machine that literally cannot hold itself upright without your hands physically on it. Poetic, in a strange way, for a bike this confused about what exactly it wanted to be when it grew up. But confusion is nothing compared to what number 5 did to its own riders. Number 5 looked absolutely stunning in photos, and that is exactly the problem. If you are still with us and enjoying watching these 2000s machines get ruthlessly exposed one by one, hit that subscribe button right now before we go any further. It costs you nothing. It takes about 2 seconds of your time, and it is genuinely the only reason we get to keep making detailed breakdowns Exactly like this one, instead of chasing whatever shallow trend, the algorithm happens to be rewarding this particular week. Stalling out beautifully at number 5, Honda CRF450R Valkyrie Rune. Here's a bike that proves beyond any reasonable doubt that gorgeous styling means absolutely nothing if the product underneath does not actually work as a motorcycle. The Rune, built exclusively across 2004 and 2005, is a functional disaster wrapped inside one of the most stunning chrome bodies Honda has ever produced. 840 pounds of curb weight, an astronomical original price tag that made even wealthy buyers wince at the dealership, and a riding position that somehow manages to offer close to zero practical comfort or storage, despite the bike's enormous physical footprint on the road. It was Honda's concept bike made real moment, and concept bikes rarely make good daily companions. Even low mileage examples sitting under 5,000 miles, and virtually all of them are low mileage because owners rarely rode these things with any regularity, will still run you $18,000 to $25,000 on today's market. Before you seriously consider one, inspect the trailing bottom link front suspension pivots for any binding or chrome pitting. That unique front end is absolutely stunning to look at. Parked in a driveway and nightmarishly expensive to repair the moment something inside it starts to bind or corrode, since Honda never built a large parts network for a machine this low volume, and dealers today mostly just shrug when you ask. It is basically a rolling museum piece that occasionally, reluctantly, needs an oil change, and pricing out that front suspension repair before you buy might just change your entire mind about owning one. Speaking of expensive Italian mistakes, wait until you hear what Ducati did next. Bricking itself randomly at number 4, Ducati Multistrada 1000 DS. Ducati looked hard at the emerging adventure touring segment back in 2003 and somehow decided that the best possible way in was a bizarre two-piece front fairing, where the top half rotates in unison with the handlebars while the bottom half stays completely fixed to the frame. It genuinely looks like the bike is having an identity crisis every single time you turn the wheel, because in a very real mechanical sense it is, and photos genuinely do not do the awkwardness justice in person. Yet sold from 2003 through 2005, these currently sit at $2,500 to $3,800 with 15,000 to 25,000 miles typically on the clock. Check inside the instrument cluster for any moisture or foggy lenses before you commit to anything. The immobilizer chip lives right there, embedded in the dashboard, and any water intrusion whatsoever will completely brick the ignition system without warning, sometimes requiring an entire replacement cluster sourced from Italy just to get the bike running again. One rainy commute, one small seal failure, and suddenly your quirky Italian adventure bike is an extremely expensive paperweight sitting in your garage with a security system that has turned against you. And speaking of bikes that punish riders for pushing them too hard, the next entry ran so hot that 2 entire manufacturers had to team up just to figure out where it went wrong. Overheating violently at number 3, Suzuki RMZ250. This co-developed 4-stroke motocross platform, launched in 2004, shared between Suzuki and Kawasaki development teams as the RMZ250 and KX250F, and it simply could not handle the abuse that came with serious track use. The cooling system was undersized from the factory, and riders who actually pushed these motors hard faced chronic overheating, along with valve and camshaft wear that followed directly from a running hot lap after lap. They typically sell for $1,500 to $2,500 today. And most surviving first-year examples were ridden hard and put away wet, which honestly tells you everything you need to know before you even open the listing. Check the radiator and coolant hoses closely for signs of a previous overheating event, and ask for valve clearance and top-end rebuild records. Kawasaki and Suzuki quietly fixed much of this with a larger radiator on the following model year, so if a previous owner never addressed the cooling and valve issues on an early bike, that tells you the factory version simply could not be trusted at all, no matter how carefully you ride it or how conservative you try to be with the throttle. And if you thought that was a rough way to lose confidence in a bike, wait until you hear how badly Honda fumbled a perfect motocross machine. Flaming out repeatedly at number 2, Honda CRF450R. This one genuinely hurts because Honda had an absolutely perfect motocross bike sitting in their lineup back in 2008. And then in 2009, they rushed out a first-generation fuel injection system that turned out to be an outright regression from everything that came before it. Erratic throttle response at the worst possible moments. Sudden flameouts mid-corner on track, and the kind that end up putting you face first into a berm in front of everyone watching. And these currently run $2,200 to $3,000, and when converted for dual sport use, they average 1,500 plus miles of documented use. Pull the oil dipstick and actually smell it before you hand over any money. If it smells even faintly like raw gasoline, the early injectors are leaking fuel directly into the motor oil, diluting your lubrication with something that is very much not supposed to be in there and quietly wearing down the internals long before you notice a problem out on the trail. A perfect bike ruined by rushed electronics. Nobody had enough time to properly test before shipping it out to dealers. But nothing, and we mean nothing, on this list compares to what is coming at number 1. Collapsing completely at number 1, Excelsior-Henderson Super X. The absolute bottom of this list belongs to a heavy cruiser revival that collapsed under the weight of its own ambition before most riders even got a chance to test one. Built from 1999 to 2000, the Super X suffered from severe factory build inconsistencies, genuinely agricultural handling that felt decades behind the competition, and a company bankruptcy so sudden and so fast that owners were left completely orphaned without any replacement parts pipeline whatsoever. The whole company essentially vanished overnight, taking any hope of factory support along with it. Expect to pay $4,500 to $6,500 for one with 3,000 to 8,000 miles showing. Inspect the front X-twin leading link fork welds very closely before you even sit on it. Early production batches suffered from poor weld penetration that threatened genuine structural failure under heavy braking, which is about as serious a red flag as any used motorcycle can possibly wave in your face. That closes out the worst of the decade. 7 machines that proved looks, ambition, and even good intentions mean absolutely nothing without solid engineering underneath. Now let us flip the script completely, because the 9 bikes coming up are about to make you regret every dollar you have ever spent on a brand new showroom motorcycle. Carbureting perfectly at number 9, Honda CRF450R. Remember that fuel injection disaster we just tore apart a moment ago? This is the bike before Honda ruined a perfectly good thing. From 2005 to 2008, the CRF450R ran a 𝐏𝐻𝐑 FCR carburetor that was lightweight, razor crisp, and permanently crushed the supremacy of 2-stroke motocross bikes for an entire generation of riders who grew up on ring-dings and never looked back once they threw a leg over this. These go for $2,500 to $3,800, typically calculated in hours rather than miles, usually 40 to 80 hours logged on a rebuild. Check the intake valve clearances with a feeler gauge before you buy anything. The factory titanium intake valves wear through their hard coating over time and stretch slightly, causing hard starting once the engine warms up on a hot afternoon at the track. It is a small, cheap fix, and it is the only thing standing between you and a genuinely perfect dirt bike sitting at a criminally low price. And the very next bike takes that same go bigger mentality to an almost absurd extreme. Overbuilding shamelessly at number 8, Triumph Rocket 3. Triumph decided that if they could not beat the competition on outright refinement, they would beat them on displacement instead, and they were not remotely subtle about it. From 2004 to 2008, they crammed a longitudinal 2,294 cubic centimeters 3-cylinder engine into a cruiser frame, briefly making it the largest displacement production motorcycle engine ever built anywhere in the world, a title it held onto for years before anyone even tried to challenge it. These currently sell for $5,000 to $7,500 with 15,000 to 30,000 miles, typically on the odometer. Ask specifically whether the upgrade kit was installed to fix the output shaft bearing before you commit to buying. Early models had weak transmission, detent springs, and output bearings that required actually splitting the engine cases just to repair them properly, a job most owners had no interest in doing themselves, and a job most independent shops quietly dreaded whenever one rolled through the door. Confirm that work was done, and you have got yourself an automotive-sized engine on two wheels for less than half of what one costs new, with torque figures that still make modern 1000cc bikes look nervous by comparison. But if raw displacement excites you, wait until you see what Suzuki did to the rear tire alone on the next entry. Flexing ridiculously at number 7, Suzuki Boulevard M109R. Suzuki looked squarely at the power cruiser segment from 2006 to 2009 and decided subtlety was strictly for other manufacturers to worry about. An enormous 1,783 cubic centimeters short-stroke V-twin paired with a factory-fitted rear tire measuring 9.4 inches wide, the kind of tire that genuinely looks like it was stolen off a dedicated drag bike and bolted on as a joke that somehow became a production feature. Expect to pay $5,500 to $7,500 with 12,000 to 22,000 miles showing. Take it for a proper, aggressive test ride and shift hard from first gear into second under real load, more than once if the seller will allow it. These bikes are known for soft shift forks that let the transmission dangerously pop out of second gear at exactly the wrong moment, usually mid-acceleration, when you are least prepared for it and least able to react in time. Confirm that has never happened before you buy, because that is not a quirky character trait. That is a genuine safety issue hiding underneath all that chrome and swagger. And speaking of engineering that quietly changed everything, our next bike practically eliminated vibration itself. Vibrating nothing. At number 6, Honda CRF450R Super Blackbird. We are staying in seriously fast territory here, because the Blackbird earned its spot on this best of list without much argument from anyone who has actually ridden one. Built and fuel injected from 2001 through 2003, it delivered effortless speeds well past 170 miles per hour thanks to dual counterbalancer shafts that essentially cancel out engine vibration entirely at any RPM you care to hold it at. These sell today for $4,000 to $5,500 with 20,000 to 35,000 miles typically logged, which for a bike this genuinely capable is borderline insulting to the engineers who spent years perfecting it. Check the charging system with a voltmeter before you commit to buying. The OEM regulator and rectifier are known to commonly overheat, burn straight through the wiring harness, and take the battery down along with them in the process, usually with zero warning until you are stranded somewhere inconvenient with a dead dash and a very confused look on your face. A $50 part quietly failing can leave you stuck on the side of a highway. So confirm it has already been addressed, ideally with an upgraded aftermarket unit, before you hand over any cash. Up next is an engine so overbuilt it was literally borrowed by a completely different motorsport entirely. If you are enjoying this breakdown of exactly where your money goes furthest on the used market right now, drop a comment telling us which one of these 16 bikes you would actually park in your own garage tonight. We genuinely read every single comment, and it helps us figure out exactly which corners of the used market to dig into next. Terrifying everyone at number 5, Kawasaki Ninja ZX-10R. The first generation ZX-10R from 2004 to 2005 is still talked about in hushed tones on forums because Kawasaki built it with essentially zero safety net for the rider. No factory steering damper anywhere on the bike. A raw, genuinely lightweight chassis pushing an aggressive 175 horsepower power-to-weight ratio that absolutely terrified an entire generation of experienced sport bike riders who thought they had seen it all before this thing showed up. These currently sit at $4,500 to $6,500 with 15,000 to 25,000 miles on them. Check the front generator rotor and stator area very carefully before you buy. The adhesive holding the factory generator magnets together frequently failed on these Gen 1 models. shattering apart violently inside the case and sending debris circulating through the engine, often taking the stator windings down with it in the process. It is a known, well-documented issue among owners' clubs and forums, and it is entirely avoidable if you simply take the time to look before signing anything or handing over a deposit. What comes next borrowed its heart directly from a factory race bike, and it shows in the most brutal way possible, reshaping everything at number 4, Ducati Monster S4R. Ducati took the beating heart of their 996 cubic centimeters superbike, the actual liquid-cooled 4-valve race replica engine, and dropped it straight into a minimalist, trellis-framed naked bike from 2003 to 2006. The result forcefully reshaped what an entire generation of riders believed a naked bike was even allowed to be, and competitors spent years trying to catch up to it. These sell today for $5,500 to $7,500, with 10,000 to 15,000 miles typically showing. Demand the full documented service records for the 𝐏𝐄𝐑 valve clearances and timing belt changes before you even start negotiating on price. If those belts are older than 2 years or 6,000 miles, budget roughly $1,000 for a shop visit before you even think about riding it hard on a weekend. Because a snapped belt on a 𝐏𝐄𝐑 engine is not the kind of mistake you get to make twice, and the resulting valve damage tends to be catastrophic. Get through that checklist though, and what is waiting in the final 3 entries might genuinely be the smartest motorcycle purchases of the entire decade. We have covered a lot of ground already, so if these detailed price breakdowns are actually saving you from making a bad purchase decision this week, that is exactly what the like button exists for. It tells the platform, this content is genuinely useful, which means more riders shopping the used market see it before they overspend on the wrong bike. Rewriting tradition at number 3, Harley-Davidson V-RS-CV-Rod. Harley did something almost nobody expected between 2000 and 2007. They co-developed a liquid-cooled, high-revving 60-degree V-twin engine in partnership with Porsche, shattering decades of the company's own rigid internal traditions inside one single, genuinely radical model that longtime loyalists did not quite know what to make of at first. These go for $5,000 to $8,500 with 8,000 to 18,000 miles. Typically on the clock, which for a Harley carrying genuine Porsche-developed engineering underneath is a remarkably small number to swallow. Look beneath the seat at the structural plastic fuel cell and check the fuel pump top flange for any micro cracks. Those cracks are known to cause fuel odor and slow pressure loss over time, and catching that early saves you from a much larger repair bill further down the road once the leak gets worse and starts affecting how the engine actually runs, sometimes triggering fault codes that send owners chasing a completely unrelated problem. What is coming next is arguably the most perfectly balanced sport bike Honda has ever released, and the price will make you angry, weighing nothing. At number 2, Honda CRF450R SOAR Fireblade. Honda hit the absolute peak of lightweight, analog engineering with the 954 Fireblade across 2002 and 2003. An ultra-light dry weight of just 370 pounds, achieved with essentially zero-invasive electronic rider aids getting between the rider and the road, back when a good chassis and a light curb weight did more for handling than any amount of software ever could. Standard examples run $5,500 to $7,500 with 12,000 to 20,000 miles, though genuine collector-grade examples showing under 2,000 miles have sold for $11,000 or more at specialty auction houses in recent years, a figure that keeps quietly climbing as more people rediscover just how good this generation of Fireblade really was. Check the lower crankcase engine blocks for hairline cracks around the oil pan threads before buying. Over-tightened oil drain bolts and hard track impacts are both notorious for causing exactly this kind of damage, and it is a cheap 5-minute check with a flashlight that could save you from an absolutely brutal engine rebuild bill down the line. Since a cracked case on a bike, this light often means the frame absorbed more of an impact than the seller is willing to admit. And now, finally, we arrive at the single bike that makes this entire list worth watching. Outlasting everyone at number 1, Yamaha FJR1300. Here it is. The single best value sitting on the entire 2000s used market today, hands down, no argument. The first generation FJR1300 sold in the United States from 2003 to 2005, redefined what sport touring could actually be by combining genuine high-speed inline-4 performance with a flawless, low-maintenance shaft drive assembly and one of the first truly effective electric adjustable windscreens ever fitted to a production motorcycle. These currently sell for an almost unbelievable $3,000 to $4,500, typically showing 35,000 to 55,000 miles already logged, which for a bike engineered to cross entire continents in comfort is basically nothing at all when you actually stop and think about the numbers involved. Before you buy, make absolutely sure the ignition switch turns smoothly through every single position without hesitation. Early models were prone to internal electrical short circuits that could lock the ignition up entirely without warning, a fault serious enough that it sparked an official factory recall back when it was discovered, leaving some owners stranded in a parking lot with a bike that simply would not turn over. Confirm that fix has been carried out and you are walking away with a single best dollar per mile touring machine the entire decade ever produced, a bike that can genuinely swallow a 1,000-mile day and ask for nothing more in return than fuel and a fresh set of tires. 16 motorcycles, 7 cautionary tales that show you exactly what to inspect before handing over a single dollar, and 9 genuine hidden gems sitting on the used market right now for a fraction of what they are actually worth. The 2000s were the last full decade before manufacturers buried everything under layers of software nobody outside a dealership can touch. Back when a good mechanic with basic tools could still diagnose almost anything that went wrong. That is precisely why these bikes are still fixable, still rideable, and still criminally underpriced, sitting in classified listings right now, waiting for someone who actually knows what they are looking at. Click the next video on your screen right now because we are far from finished digging through this used market. And don't forget to get your guide.